Human rights. The privilege for many people around the world in the United States. But Mexico, for an example, is one country with the highest rank of human violations. One violation is Article 5, quoting, "No one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment." The Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Many suffer beatings, waterboarding, electric shocks, and sexual torture when kidnapped, violating Article 5 in the Human Rights. Many people that have gotten tortured has happened by the cause of the country's drug war and gotten consequences they didn't deserve by the fault of the drug war and the president not doing much about it. Between January and September 2013, the National Human Rights Commission received more than 860 complaints of torture or cruel or inhuman treatment by federal officials. That said, half of the complaints were said to be about how many were getting abused and tortured. Since the war on drugs began under President Felipe Calderón in 2006 and caused more than 100,000 people to be killed in drug-related violence, it was said that some students were found, and was said that the students that arrived at the rubbish dumped in Canyon miles away from the human settlement in the back of 2 trucks, having been handed over by the police officials to a gang of drug traffickers. About 15 were already dead, and told that half were tortured in many ways that could not be detailed. Those still alive were given brief mercy, then tied up and shot. They were covered with ties, wood, and liquid fuel so that the fire would burn for at least 14 hours and would remove every trace of them. When it had died down, the remaining non-charred bones were put in rubbish bags and tipped into a nearby river, making Mexico have no choice but ask for help. The U.S. troops are working with the Mexican government under the guise of fighting of the war of drugs and human violations of people that have been kidnapped. However, allegations in the USA forces are actually fighting in Mexico and have raised new controversies on both sides of the border. Most recently, for example, the Obama administration announced in September that it was sending hundreds of U.S. Marines to Guatemala as part of the Operation Martillo, a multinational coalition of soldiers and law enforcement aimed at countering narcotics trafficking through Central America, to try and help the people that had suffered human violations of their rights. The Center of International Policy plus the United States has spent approximately $3 billion to fund the so-called war on drugs in Mexico, to help the people who have been faced with the violation of their human rights. In that regard, when half of the town where some family members were missing protested to express their feelings they felt while captured or how they felt about their friend or family member that was missing, saying it was not fair how the police officers only cared about capturing the drug lords and not do anything about the way some people got tortured, and how the people that witnessed it didn't get the help they thought the government would give. Later on, Mexico's new president, Enrique Pena Nieto, combating it through all illegal drug production and trafficking in Mexico, and states, "My government will continue mounting a real fight against the trafficking of marijuana and all other drugs and try to get our country back, focusing on reducing the violence in Mexico rather than capturing the top drug lords," and have said so far nothing much that has changed since everything started from 1980 to 2010. But as I've mentioned before, the help of the United States have provided and made some changes so far in 2014. Supports include $2.4 million plus $3 million in taxpayer funds, and later launched as a 3-year aid program for Mexican security forces, helping many families and people in Mexico with the violations in their human rights.